The pay equity scrap is a mess that the national government should have been able to avoid. From Chris Luxon's office down, it's been a shambles, when truth is it's easily defendable.
That is a lie.
And the eyeballs are on Nicola Willis, but never in 30 years of journalism and political reporting have I resorted to calling a politician a CUNT, like Stuff did in one of their journalists' column. Not necessary, not defendable, not used against Jacinda Ardern, and just not needed. Welcome to the program. Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, with the Editor-in-Chief. Good evening, everybody. I'm Duncan Garner. Welcome. Good to have you along. Please subscribe. Helps us stay here. Tell your friends. Subscribe. Really important. It's a strong word. Starts with C. And see you next Tuesday. CUNT, if you don't know what I mean. It's the word Stuff columnist Andrew Vance used to describe Nicola Willis and her move to halt 33 existing pay equity claims. Why use such a word? It was never used against Jacinda Ardern or anyone in the Labour government. It's attention-seeking, and it's a new low from Stuff. Anything goes now, right? Sure, it's a mess, this pay equity thing, and if National's making it, could have easily been done so much better, and I wonder if there's Christopher Luxon's office up to it. Does he need some serious help? But the C word, let's discuss it. Let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
So right from the start, National messed up the cancelling of the 33 pay equity claims when this should have been a lot more simple. As I believe what they have done is justifiable, actually. But they allowed Chris Hipkins in the mix to chip away.
Taking money away that women were otherwise going to get is a cut. They are cutting women's pay. They are taking billions of dollars that women were going to receive and they're cutting it. That's cutting women's pay.
And in return, Nicola Willis has used a word that few politicians use. Not allowed in the House, and few choose to use it outside. Not the C word, but the L word.
To tell an outright lie to New Zealand workers that women's pay is being cut. That is a lie.
Now Hipkins has gone a step further, authorising advertisements like this one. Yeah, nurses, happy Nurses Day. We have a pay cut for you. Thoughts and prayers, Chris Luxon. No nurse, of course, is getting a pay cut. But this is politics, and now the gloves are off, and the truth is lost because the nation failed National failed to own this and do this properly from the start. National should have owned it from the start and come up with a better plan. Firstly, it should never have crashed into urgency to do it. So close to the budget. Not even its backbench MPs knew what it was doing. Then ACT leader David Seymour shouted that he'd saved the budget, which made it look like it was only being done to free up billions and save the budget. So lots of cuts. The messaging, the approach, the entire organisation of this event from Luxon's office down has been a shambles of their own making. And now, of course, they're desperately trying to defend the moves, which actually are completely justified. It should never have gone into urgency like it did. Luxon was AWOL, wasn't there on the Wednesday, wasn't there in Parliament, wasn't there on the Thursday. His office looks lightweight for allowing this to happen. And Seymour should have been told what the right messaging was from the start. Not the I have saved the budget line, which is a shocker. Luxon's office must step up and take the blame for allowing this to run as it has. Helen Clark and Heather Simpson would never have gone in with the strategy. They would have had a strategy to control it. Likewise, John Key and Wayne Eagleson, same. This lot look all at sea at times. They need help. Because truth is, Labour's law covering pay equity claims was weak and allowed admin workers to compare themselves to civil engineers. Social workers were being compared with detectives, librarians were being compared with fisheries officers, multiple employers were being joined to claims, and some had dozens of very different jobs in scope. What started as a pay equity regime had become a Trojan horse for a multi-billion-dollar grievance industry, driven by the unions. It had departed a very long way from the issues of sex discrimination. Labour's 2020 law was totally out of whack with reality. But to say pay cuts are taking place right now isn't correct. 12 settlements already made remain, including for nurses, social workers, midwives, teacher aides, school librarians, care and support workers, and a range of other female-dominated workforces. It all remains. Those equity claims have been through and they won't be touched. Not that the media are telling you all this sort of stuff. Those settlements resulted in higher pay for tens of thousands of women, and they continue to be funded by the government at a cost of around $1.8 billion a year. Despite Hipkins saying nurses get a pay cut, the opposite is true. The aforementioned industries have had their settlement and it remains no change. But fixing the law into the future was crucial, and it will release billions of dollars that now will be invested in this and probably future budgets. And Willis has been quite clear about that. But Andrea Vance calling Willis a CUNT in her weekend column was over the top. It is extraordinary. We'll talk about it shortly with David Farrar. It was unnecessary. And I'm quite astonished that the editor of the paper and the sub-editors and the website editors allowed this to go through and make it into print and make it onto the screen. And to print it and publish it I've never seen this in 30 years. It's astonishing. They never called Jacinda Ardern that or anyone in her government. And had they tried, it would have been stopped well before publication, I'm sure. I personally think it's unnecessary. It takes political commentary to a way new low. It's over the top, attention-seeking in many ways. How it got through is up to staff to justify, but I doubt they can. Their silence is rotten. Willis might be many things, but calling her a CUNT, I think is poor. I think it's inappropriate. It's off the mark and it raises all sorts of questions for journalism rather than the government, I would have thought. It's poor. And stuff I think needs to apologise.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
All right, joining me now is National Party pollster and observer of politics, David Farrar. Decades-long veteran, and he's always man on the spot with politics. I don't think either of us have ever seen such a word used by a journalist to describe a politician ever. I know the Greens once used it, and it backfired, and I'm sure you've thought it. You know, maybe I've been a CUNT over the years, but you've never said so, David. Anyway, you join me. David joins me now. David, g'day. Nice to have you on the program.
Thank you. Good to be back.
And we've both covered this stuff for decades, and the only time I remember the C word being used was a Green MP using it in a speech. Never, ever before heard a journalist say it or on air or use it in print. It's remarkable, isn't it, the C word?
Absolutely remarkable. Look, I'm a blogger, right? You know, people say we've got no standards. Let me tell you that we have standing policy for the moderators. If even a commentator on the site uses the C word against an MP, it gets deleted. I would never use it myself. But here we have the biggest newspaper chain in New Zealand didn't just have the journalists use it, but it got through the editors. They said, yeah, we will print this column where you call female ministers the C word. And I cannot recall that having happened. And this is the same media outfit that's run, I've been counting them up, Duncan. I've counted 14 stories so far. They've run about sexism against female MPs, including how terrible it is that people on social media use the C word. And I agree, it is. But, you know, anonymous trolls on social media is one thing. Journalists in their newspaper, my God.
This would have been written, so this is written, so how it works in the media is for people that don't know, so the column is written by the journalist. They will then have a discussion with the sub-editors. They will bring it up themselves. They'll say, I've put this word in there, and this is how it looks, and now you can have the discussion. It went through the sub-editing and editing process, and then they pressed the word publish.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And they won't apologise. I mean, they won't even do the fake Clayton's apology. You know, the one where you say, I apologise if you were offended by it. That was not the intention.
Helen Clark.
That's fine. And how could they ever now do another article about abusive female MPs when they've said, actually, it's okay to call the Minister of Finance the C word if you don't like a policy decision?
And that's all it is. I mean, it's not so much the policy decision; it's the way it's been handled. You know, I mean, I agree that it was badly handled with the rushed urgency and all that sort of thing. You know, okay, so there's question marks about that. But actually, if you look at the policy, it didn't stack up from Labor, and it was highly questionable what was being compared to what was being compared to, and it's actually a legitimate overturning of these claims for them to go back to the table again, because it wasn't apples and apples and pears and pears. Putting that to one side, why would you put your line in the sand on this one as a journalist? Because nothing else can be any more C word than what's this. So what happens when something really bad happens?
Absolutely, but also, and I actually personally a fan of many of the stories the journalist has done in the past, some great investigators are. But politically, how can she now write on politics when you've actually called one side of politics the C word? I just don't think that is now credible.
Does the National Party do anything about this? Does the Prime Minister's office do something about this? Does Nicola Willis's office do something about it? Do they seek a meeting with the editors of this organisation? Or what would you do in this instance?
Oh, I think they're a bit stunned personally. I quite like Nicola's response, which was to just say, well, it wasn't what I expected for Mother's Day to be called the C word by a journalist. And look, centre-right MPs don't tend to play the victim card. They don't like it. If this was a centre-left MP, this would be the lead story in every newspaper.
Yep.
There would be demands for apologies. The National Council of Women, the Human Rights Commission would be out there demanding it. All the party leaders would be being asked to denounce it. And, we see this like Golra's, she does shoplifting. And then we all get told, well, she's had people say nasty things to her, including the C word. So that excuses the shoplifting. But no, like National probably rightfully thinks this harms them more than it harms us. Because they were getting heat on this.
Yeah.
And now it's actually more about, well, aren't people being a bit hysterical?
Well, I think that's probably the word too, which we could be criticised for using that word as well, probably.
Yes.
But
not as bad, no. H word is not as bad as the C word.
No, it's not. No, but with this word, I look back at the certain things. I mean, when Jenny Shipley lowered that floor of super, remember 65 to 60, you would have been around then, and that was is this a lowering? Is this a cut? Remember, that's very similar to this debate now. No one.
I remember that one, Duncan, just because Jenny had up where I worked for her in her office, one of the best cartoons ever, where she tried to say it's not a cut, it's just adjusting it.
That's right.
And there's a boy knocking on her door in Scout uniform saying, I'm doing Bob a job, can I get $1 for adjusting your lawns? And I just thought, that's how you respond with humour.
There's better ways of doing it, right? I mean, the C word, even if you go ... I mean, we all know what you're saying here. To me, it's attention seeking from the journalist and from the organisation in many ways, isn't it? And journalism is under huge threat, as we know, and it's changed remarkably, and there's a huge issue around trust. If this one is a CUNT, then what about Jacinda Ardern in the past government? What happened then?
Well, look. Let's be clear. No one should use the C word against a politician, full stop. But online, you did have social media people, often anonymous, who would use the C word against Jacinda because they lost their jobs, they blamed her, etc.
Yep.
And that was rightfully called out by staff. They decried it. They said these people on social media should not do it. And then they turn around and do it themselves after going through a sub-editor and the editor.
But it's meant to be professionalism, right? So where's the professionalism? And it's a profession. Journalism is a profession, right? No matter what you think of it.
Yeah.
It's a profession. So there are standards,
Duncan,
and standards to adhere to.
When you were on air, what would you do if one of your guests tried to use the C word? You would stop them, right?
Oh, well, I'd stop them and apologise on behalf of the program. I mean, the N word was used on a couple of occasions when I was on the AM show, and I stopped the show and said, we apologise for the use of this word. Not that we used it, but we carried it.
Oh.
Right? So I apologise for that. And that was controversial even doing that. But there are a number of things that I've always thought in journalism that you shouldn't do, and that's on air. C, likening something to the Holocaust, just a number of those sorts of things. I've always believed they stay out of the mix. Yeah. Just as pure sort of standards. And I'm as rough and tumble as the rest of them.
It's so easy to do that column and even use, just say, all you have to do to be a woman in politics is to crap on low-wage women.
Yeah.
Still a bit coarse, but no
even
one would
shit on them. I once remember saying on air that something was likened. I likened it to a shitty two-piece covers band. Stuff did a story on me saying outrageous language from Duncan Garner AM show. I said shitty two-piece cover band. Now, I don't think it offended anyone, but obviously offended stuff. This is the same organisation that said sorry to Māori when they didn't even have to say sorry on a number of occasions, but they said sorry for all their entire approach to Māoridom over the last 100 odd years. And here they are doing this. I reckon it's unacceptable.
No, I really am amazed they're still refusing to apologise and back down on this because it's just clearly wrong. Some things are hard to say right or wrong, but you don't call female ministers the C word. Easy.
No, and I reckon Willis has probably played it quite well, and she's been she's probably been quite dignified in her response, actually, which is the only way to go. I mean, if they go low, then you go high, I suppose, is the way, isn't it? Because then the attention comes on. But you're right. If this had been on another government of a different colour, there would be. You're right. The PSA would be involved. The women's lib movement would be involved. The feminist movement would be involved. The Council of New Zealand Women. All that. They'd be up in arms. Where are they?
And none of them, not a single. And also your colleagues in the media. I know that's unfair for you, not legacy media. But where have been all the stories? Where have been the outrage? Where have been the editorials? One story in the media column of the Herald, which was more analysis rather than actually saying, hey, this is a bad thing.
If it was me that had said it, it'd be a story.
Oh, look, Sean Plunkett got hounded off air. There was an advertiser boycott against him.
For the hooah.
Because I can't even remember what he said, but I'm pretty sure he didn't call Jacinda the C word.
No, he called Eleanor Catton a hooah. Because I was at Radio Live at the time. That's
right.
Remember that? So
ungrateful, I think.
Ungrateful hooah, where people thought it was, and then they changed the meaning to ungrateful whore. Now it wasn't that, because I was on after him on that particular day, and it was hooah. Yeah. But he was hounded out of that job.
He was. Vodafone, I think, were the ones, weren't they, who said, we won't advertise with you unless he's gone.
That's right. So where's
any advertiser going to stuff saying, hey, could you just, not use the C word in future?
Is it because it's a woman that's used it? The columnist is a woman. Is it? Do they get a wider berth in a different past to me?
Oh, maybe a bit, but I don't think so. Look, at the end, if any journalist in New Zealand had used that word against Jacinda Ardern or Helen Clark it would have been the end for them.
Oh, if you'd used it against Helen Clark, there would be, well, she'd probably move to get you removed from the job, actually. One of the first things she did in office was see that TVNZ, heads will roll. One of the first comments, you probably remember that. So, yep. I'm genuinely gobsmacked, and I wonder if it is attention seeking from stuff. They've deliberately gone out there to lower their standards on purpose to see what sort of reaction there is. Now, the fact there's not much reaction would indicate to me then this is the new standard, and I don't accept that.
Well, it's going to be very, very hard in future, as you say, though, that once you've set that as the standard. And ironically, their own policy for people commenting, it specifically says, do not use profanity on our site. So how do they now tell all their users, you can't do it, but it's okay for our journalists to use? I mean, look, there are times where use of the C word can be justified if it's a direct quote, if it's reporting on something said in court, etc. But let's be clear, using it to denigrate a member of parliament is in a class of its own.
Well, a senior minister who's about to put together the budget, and what sort of budget is it going to be? Is it the C budget now? I mean, do you know what I mean? because it has to be from that journalist, because the journalist has set the new tone.
Yeah, well, I do wonder. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the stuffed newsroom, because I would hope that some of the reporters, especially those in the press gallery who depend on access to politicians, are saying to the higher up people, hey, do you have any idea how difficult this makes our job? How do you expect us to be able to get ministers trusting us to comment fairly when one of our own is calling them the C word?
Well, I mean, I was brought up in the press gallery. I was there very young, 21, and I was for the first 6 or 7 years I was under the tutelage of Linda Clark and Lee Pearson. Linda Clark especially. Do you think? Can you imagine if I'd put this word on here?
Linda would kill you. I don't mean that in a
she almost would have, I think.
She would find your body.
I mean, that would be buried somewhere a long way away. Yeah. I would have been dead meat. I wouldn't have been on air. It would have been the end of me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely unthinkable.
Yeah. Looking at the wider issue, I actually believe there's a lot of merit in what National's done. Except the way they've done it, it's become a bit of a dog's breakfast, hasn't it? I mean, it should have been dealt with from Luxon's office much better.
In one day.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, you should allow people to have a say. I agree. Look, they had to change it. You can't afford tens of billions of dollars where you're saying a librarian is equal to a fisheries officer or an admin officer is an engineer.
Yeah.
I would not defend the way they did it. But the substance, I think, is extremely debatable because, I'd rather have that money go towards buying more operations, buying more teachers in schools than massive pay rises.
To say nurses are getting a cut is incorrect because nurses have had their pay round, they've had their claim, and it's settled, and it's not going to be overturned. So actually, it's just an outright lie, isn't it?
Of calling things a cut, which aren't. They used to claim National had cut health spending when they had not. But what Labor meant by cut is they're not increasing it
Yeah.
as much as we want them to. And this is the same here. They're calling it a cut when actually what they're saying is future pay rises may be less than what they would have been. That's not a cut. Yeah. That's just... English words mean something.
Well, that's exactly what they do. So Labor would have, let's say, promised 28 billion in health, and National's promising 27.8. They're not going to do another 200 million, which is what Labor would have done. So it's still going up, just not quite as much as what Labor would have done under their projections. That's what they're talking about. As a thing right now, nurses will get the same pay this week, next week, and the week after. It's the same. Nothing's been cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, David. Hey, I do appreciate your time, mate, because I knew someone like you would be experienced and be sort of outraged with the C word.
Yeah, we've been around the block, but this is a new one, I have to say.
Yeah, and that's why I sort of love talking about this sort of stuff, because there's always something new. But this one, I mean, you may have thought that I was one of those things back in the day, or maybe not. But
No. I've never been in that camp, Duncan, except maybe if you have good in front of it. That's perhaps the only time where you can say it.
Okay, mate. Hey, all the best, David. Appreciate your time and your perspective on this, mate. Cheers.
Thanks, Duncan.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Yeah, I think we're all gobsmacked at this. Let's talk about it a bit more. Isaac, my Christchurch producer, you're a young man that's come through broadcasting school. You know what's right and wrong. What do you think of it? You're a young bloke that has views on the media, and you're working in the media. What do you think of someone in journalism calling a minister of that seniority a CUNT?
I think it's ridiculous. It's poor. It's uneducated. It's not intelligent. It's also just really bad and goes against all BSA rulings. I'm not sure how much they control they have over like newspapers and articles, but I did a big part of my degree, the kind of final part. I did lots of research into kind of offensive language in media. Yeah. And the C word, the C-bomb, CUNT, that was number one for a long, long time. And I think it's only recently been dethroned by the N-word. But that is just, the worst word you can use in any of these situations. And
it
for
really
some reason,
is.
And anyone working in our industry should know that. And so the fact that it's got through all those rounds of editors and onto into their system or into their article was insane.
It is uneducated. It is, and I look forward to seeing what staff have to say about this. And the press council, I think, is probably the one that has to cover this. But I mean, I got nailed by stuff, as I said to David there, for using the word shitty on the AM show. Shitty two best covers man. And stuff ran a big, Duncan Garner. Now, if that's bad, then what's the CUNT? I just think it's the dumbest thing they've done in a long time. And the worst thing is, was it they thought about it?
Yeah,
they
I know.
thought about this,
and
mate.
It's just, and for a journalist as well, it automatically shows that she is obviously coming at it from a non-biased perspective, which is like, okay, if it's an opinion piece or whatever, but it's like, whether she's a reporter or whatever, it's obviously now starting to muddy the waters with that. But then using language like that, it's obviously just a sign of someone that doesn't have much intelligence, is being too led by their emotions in this story that they're covering, and so they should probably be taken off that story, and somebody else should be led on it.
Yeah, well said.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Guy should be on a podcast. That's us, guys. Thanks for your feedback and support. Let us know what you think of the C word too. If you think we're being a little bit prissy about this, then let us know. But I don't think we are. Get in touch with our social media at Duncan Garner Podcast, TikTok, Instagram. Flick us an email, duncan@rover.nz. I mean, there are no rules on a podcast. I can drop the C-bomb every day. I don't think it's credible. And if I started to, you think, what's wrong with the guy? Isaac, thank you, brother. All thanks, as always, to my team. We'll do it again tomorrow. Remember, life's no dress rehearsal, no curtain raiser. This is it. We live in one of the best places on earth, despite the sour mouth on some of us. So get out and enjoy it and have a great day. Take care, New Zealand. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Ta-ra. Take care.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.